Coach Kent, IamU.sports. Today we have Justin Rogers with us in the building. Justin, we appreciate it. We appreciate you stopping by, supporting what we do here. Welcome to IamU.sports.
Appreciate it.
So what we want to do today, we just want to go through your background, find out, how things began for you and what led up to where you are right now. So you're from LA, right? LA, Los Angeles, California.
Yep.
Born in Gardena, right?
Yep, born in Gardena, yep. But it's kind of raised in Compton. Like, I bounced around all LA. LA County is different from the inner city of LA. Like, there's LA the city and then LA the county. And most people refer to LA, the entire county. So I bounced around all LA County growing up, but mostly, like, Compton and inner city LA.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like, how is Gardena classified in Los Angeles? Because I know most people say Los Angeles. But for somebody not from Los Angeles, you see, okay, Los Angeles is a city and a county, which one of the people talking about. But, yeah, you just cleared that up. So how would you describe Los Angeles?
Metropolitan is the word they use on the internet. But metropolitan is a good word. It's a inner city. A lot of people. Let me see. It's just a very, I hope saturated and concentrated is the correct area. So many people in a small area in comparison to how much room and how big the actual city is. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I mean, part of that is because, like, LA is a lot different than, especially here in Europe, it's a residential area. So it's like there can only be homes here, no businesses. So, like, that expands the city, and that makes a city where it's like people spend so much money on houses and they're like, man, I don't want to be near where people shop and people drive and this bus is going by my house. Like, I want to be, I don't want that stuff coming through. So it's like people spend their money and then they kind of, as a community, be like, well, this is a residential area. We don't want businesses here. So LA's just a big area. It's a lot of stuff going on. It's like, dangerous. But at the same time, it's a bit of everything. It's great weather. As many goods as there are, I'll say it's just as many bads.
Okay. What's the demographic like?
A lot of Hispanics. Obviously, the border is close to to Los Angeles. Tijuana, I think, is the closest place in Mexico. Tijuana, and really, LA is it has a lot. Like, LA is big, and Mexicans are high, but everything else is just about, I would say, even. So a lot of quote unquote white people. It's a lot of Asians. The Asian community there is big. The African culture is pretty big in LA. Let me see what else. It's just a few of them. It's a lot of them. Eritrean, which is in Africa, but it's one more. What place is this? I forget it, but it's a lot of different people from everywhere that's in LA, and they all kind of got their own communities.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I understand that at least your mom isn't from the LA area. Where's she from exactly?
My mom was born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And that's where she's from, and that's where all my cousins and family is from. They're from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And they kind of Hattiesburg, they all moved to the capital. So or not all, but a few of my family members, as they got older, they moved out of Hattiesburg and moved into the capital of Mississippi, which is Jackson, Mississippi. So that's where my mom met I have a brother. So my older brother, that's where he grew up, and that's where he was, where my mom ended up going to high school there as well, but.
In Jackson?
Yep, she went to school in Jackson as well. So, yeah, that's where she kind of made another home base, and that's where my brother is from. So, Jackson is kind of Hattiesburg and Jackson is where I'm close to in Mississippi.
Okay.
As far as her side.
And what about your dad? Where is he from?
My dad is from Compton.
Okay.
Yeah, all Compton. So, yeah. Compton, Long Beach area, which is real close. And that, again, going back to the demographic, is separate in LA, because LA is Gardena is considered LA. Inglewood is considered LA. Compton is not. Compton and Long Beach are they right next to each other and they're connected to LA, but they not quite LA.
But they're in LA County?
Definitely in LA County. Long Beach may not be in LA County, but Compton for sure is. Mm-hmm. Weird. It's weird, but yeah, it's the same. It's similar culturally, but people nah, I'm from Long Beach. I'm not from LA.
Right.
People from Compton don't really be on that. Compton is small, but people will still, they won't mind that much. But even people from Compton is kind of nah, I'm from Compton. So.
Okay, so you mentioned your oldest brother that's from Jackson, and you also have another brother we talked about before. So did you grow up with both of them?
So my brother on my mother's side is 16 years older than me, so not quite. So
right.
he actually lived and went to high school in California. My mom moved to, I don't even remember. I want to say she moved to California when she was 18. So my brother was really young, like might have been 1 or 2 years old, and she moved. Yeah, she might have been 1 or 2 years old, and she moved to California with him, and he grew up until he was like 14 or 15, and then he moved back to Jackson to live with his dad. And then so we didn't really, like, other than those years I was growing up, he might have been around for like 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 of my life. And then and then he went back to Mississippi, and like, so we didn't really grow up necessarily together. But my brother on my father's side is 3 years older than me. So we both lived with our moms, but there was like periods in our life where we lived with our dad. So like I kind of got the best of both worlds in terms of like brotherhood, because I grew up with a brother, but at the same time I grew up an only child and a baby on top of that. So like, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm the baby too, so I know the benefits of that, yeah.
Man.
All right, so you grew up around in the late 2000s, 2010s.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in LA during that time?
I'm not going to say it wasn't dangerous, but like it wasn't as bad as people see on TV. Like Compton in particular was like, when you watch it on the movies, it was kind of just like that in the movies, almost to the point where like walking down the street is dangerous, and like it was still that way growing up for me, but just not to that extent. Like it kind of just toned down a little bit, and like gangbanging kind of went in a little bit of a different direction. Like it kind of just wasn't what it used to be. You know what I mean? So for me, it mostly was like just knowing where you at. You know what I mean? Like being from there forces you to like understand the culture. Like it's called gang culture, and I feel weird calling it gang culture, but it's really our culture. And you just grow up knowing that area is the 40s, that area is the 60s. You go in this area, this is all Crips, this area is Bloods, this area is Hoover. So it's like, growing up for me, not being a part of that and living that life, and family members that do, and, separating from that is like, I'm always being conscious of where I'm at, who I'm with, you know what I mean? Honestly, you're just trying to stay off the streets, literally. Like, for the most part, my parents made sure we wasn't on nothing like that. We was always in after-school programs, got us in sports early. Even when we wasn't in sports, they both worked late. So if they couldn't pick me or my brother up, or our moms couldn't pick us up, we generally, like, we hung out at, like, Boys and Girls Clubs and, other after-school programs, summer camps we was involved with. So, yeah, it really was just about literally staying off the streets, knowing where you at, and, yeah, that's really it. Like, sports was kind of like, it was huge. So, yeah.
And is that how you ended up getting involved with football?
Pretty much. Like, the funny thing is, like, my memory is bad, but, like, the funny thing is my dad tells me, I always make jokes, like, man, why you didn't let me play soccer or let me play nothing else? Because I really have no pictures of playing. My brother, he played basketball growing up, like, that was his sport, but he played T-ball, he played soccer, he got a lot of pictures doing other stuff, but I don't. I'm like, damn, like, why did he get to, you know what I mean? And it was like, man, as soon as you touch the football, you don't want to play no other sport. Like, we couldn't get you to play nothing else. You only wanted to play football. So, and I actually started football in Long Beach, like, and it might have been an after school thing, like a flag football, down the street from my school. So it was easy for my parents. It was like, oh, after practice, you can just go to the park, bam, have your practice situation. I can come, whatever. So, yeah, flag football was kind of just that was like my first. It might have been through school. I'm not all the way certain, but it might have just been a thing for school. I tried it, and then that was it.
And which positions did you start out playing?
Quarterback, of course. Like, the best athlete on the field is generally quarterback for the little kids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true. For little
you know what I mean? You can't throw it to your good athletes at that stage. It's kind of just like, you good. Like, you seem to be the best athlete here. You got a ball every play at least.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you already have NFL ambitions back then?
I think so. I grew up, even though my dad was a basketball player and my brother was a basketball player, my older brother, I'm gonna use that name, Patrick. My older brother, he was into football, and I kind of, I looked up to both of my older brothers, but I knew he did football, and it was something that he took very seriously. And then, we watched a bunch of football. And my mom is a football fan, so like football was something that I watched a lot too. So it was like, I would probably say I wanted to be in the NFL. I'm sure. Yeah, I actually remember writing that on papers. Yeah, with crayon or something.
Okay. And by the time you got to high school, were you still playing quarterback?
No, I stopped playing quarterback. So the way it works in California, I think I want to say age 6. I really don't know.
Right.
My dad told me I say age 6 for everything, but I want to say around whatever age you are, like in first grade or second grade, you can play flag football, and then you can play tackle football in California at like age 8 or something like that. So I've maybe played 1 or 2 years of flag football, and then instantly got into tackle football. So I played quarterback all the flag, and then maybe like 2 to 3, like maybe 2 more years. So probably like 4 years of quarterback. After that, I played running back, strictly offense. I played running back in Pop Warner for like the remainder of Pop Warner, and then when I got to high school, it was when I played defense.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of played both ways. Like I played offense and defense.
Yeah,
really.
Little League, play everything.
You play everything, right? So, yeah, when I got to high school, I still played offense and defense, and then going into 10th grade, I played varsity. So, I got an opportunity to play on defense and varsity. So that was just like my first experience of really playing one position, and then I've kind of been at DB ever since.
All right. And talking about high school, you played at 3 different high schools, so but not all in California, right?
Nah, all of my high schools were in California.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, all 3 were in California.
Yeah, I went to middle school in Mississippi. We moved back to Mississippi with my brother for a little bit.
Like your whole middle school. What's middle school? Which grades in middle school in Mississippi?
Like half and half. It's 8 years, so 1.5 I was in. Like my 6th grade year, I was in Hawthorne, which is in California, close to Gardena. So I was in LA, and then half of that semester, I finished one half of that semester, and then the other half I went to Mississippi. So I did the second half of my 7th grade year in Mississippi, and then my 8th grade year. Or you know what? Nah, maybe my 7th grade year I went to Mississippi, and then I did the first semester of my 8th grade year in Mississippi, and then went back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I finished my last semester at the school I started at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in general, just take me through your high school football experience. I mean, having played at 3 different schools.
Yeah. So my first school, I was at a private school. Serra is a real popular school. Robert Woods went there, Marquise Lee, Dory Jackson.
What's the name of the school?
Serra High School.
Serra? Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of NFL dudes that went. It's a private school, and yeah, it's just a real small school. It's actually a lot of black kids that go there from the inner city. Mm-hmm. And my mom, and it was close. It was like a feeder school for my middle school. Like it was close. So, when you're in middle school and they talk about enrolling kids in high school, that was like the 3 schools that they mentioned because they're close. So, like, my mom was interested in, we actually knew somebody. She had met a dude that was the coach. So, and then that further, encouraged her to enroll me up there at Serra. So, they got me some like discount on the scholarship money because it was a private, you had to pay. So, they got me like a discount on that. And yeah, I was there for my first year, and I played freshman. I played freshman football, and I was a smaller kid. I was still athletic. I played a lot of football, practically all of the kids. But yeah, my first year was kind of just like I went in as playing running back and a little bit of like free safety, and then but I knew the game pretty well for a young kid, but like it's still kind of positionless. That's when you start to get into a position around that time. So, yeah, Serra was like a big football school though. They had a lot of dudes that had a rich history in football, so it was kind of a big deal. Their JV team was good. Their varsity team was good. So it was kind of just like all of the kids there were considered good at football and played in Pop Warner or these Little League teams that was good. They was good players from a Little League team. So we all ended up on a team, and like I wasn't like a standout player by any means because there was so many other like real talented dudes that played. So I didn't play much. We had an A team and a B team, and I actually like the first play I ever got, like the first plays that I even played was really the B team. Like, and we played on, I think the freshman team played on Friday Thursday or Friday, the freshman team played, and then on Saturday, the B team would play. So I didn't play at all much in those A games until, and it may not be as many B games or something like that. So first opportunity I got was like halfway, like close to the middle of the season. They just let me in on the B team, and I just was hooping. They put me in at running back, and I made some plays at running back, which got me a little more burn on defense for the A team, and then I kind of just worked my way into like playing. And by the end of the season, I had played a little bit. Wasn't a whole bunch, but like the only thing I take from that year is like one of the coaches. So the freshman coach used to coach JV, and then the JV, they all kind of coach each team, but you know, assistants were the head coaches of the younger team. So I just remember, considering I hadn't played much and I wasn't like I don't know. It's kind of just like I also should mention that my little league team wasn't real good, but we played a lot of other good teams, but we wasn't real good. We lost a lot of games, but I was the best player on my team or second best player every year, and it was we played against a bunch of other good dudes. But anyway, so going into it again, it was a lot of talented kids that was all the best players on their team. So like it was kind of like it wasn't a shock for me, but it was just like we're all good. Like what makes you stand out? And I wasn't really a big kid, so it's like I kind of got my chances after theirs. They all kind of got their chances and showed what they could do, and I kind of got mine a little later. And I wasn't like a crazy confident person. Quick story, like one of my boys, he actually played for the Rams now. Like this was our first day at anything. We hadn't even put cleats on yet. We had just finished register. It was really like a register day. Like we registered and we was gonna walk out on the field, I think. And like first thing he came to me and said was like, "I'm gonna take your spot." And it was like, what? Like I don't know this dude. I have no past relationship. I didn't play against him in Little League or nothing. Like he just randomly told me he was gonna take my spot. But like I always look at that because like at the time, like confidence wasn't really like what it was. Again, it was a new environment for me, and I wasn't just the most confident kid how he was. So it was just an intimidating culture from the jump for me. So like, that whole thing. But anyway, so by the end of the season, like the coach, like we had to sit down. It was kind of like player evaluations. If you're going to play JV with the coach thing, all that kind of stuff. And like, I just remember my coach saying the only one that really got potential to play varsity at all next year is probably Justin. And that shit, like, my bad. It just kind of caught me off guard because like, it felt like to the team, nobody really thought much of me until the coach had said that. And then it really made me think like, oh, wow, like maybe my efforts are noticed. You know what I mean? It made me like ask it kind of just gave me a little bit more confidence that I didn't know. You know what I mean? I didn't know how good I really was. So the fact that somebody else saw something in me kind of like made me sit back and look at myself as a player. So yeah, that was my first year. You wanted to walk me through all of the years?
No, that's cool. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. So after that kind of like said something to me. So going into 10th grade, I had transferred to a school. My mom didn't want to pay. We money was tight. My mom and dad have never really been together. They weren't together for much of my life at all. Like maybe my first 2 years of living, but after that they split. So money was always tight on both sides, even when we lived with my dad. So paying for school just wasn't really going to be much of an option for my mom. So she checked me out, and we transferred to a school in Long Beach, Cabrillo, where my mom knew. It was actually like a family member that was the coach. Okay. He had just got the job up there. So I went up there with him. He was like, man, come up here. He was the D coordinator. So played with a lot of big-time dudes. There was a lot of dudes that had, a bunch of scholarship offers. Dudes that ended up going to Washington, USC, Texas Tech. There was a lot of dudes that played up there. But, again, I kind of just went into that being around even better football players and I had scholarship offers. Again, it was another setting for me where it's like, okay, this is it, it's another kind of intimidating thing, but I had a little more confidence this time in my head. So I actually ended up playing nickel behind. I moved to defense, so I ended up playing behind one of my buddies, a senior, my boy George. He kind of like took me under his wing, and I remember we was doing a lot of the stuff, and like I just hung out close to him. He kind of showed me the ropes and kind of showed me, how to make plays. Just the whole high school thing because that high school was like a high school. Like, it wasn't a private school. It was also a public school.
Okay.
So I'm moving over from being around like a total of 400 kids to a total of like 3,000 kids.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so even the football team was a lot bigger. The football program had 150 people, especially early into the season. People trying to make the team, camp and all of that stuff. And
so were you guys like 6A, 7A?
Nah, in California, it don't work like that.
Okay.
Like, yeah, it's not really like they don't base it off of population or nothing like that. They kind of just base it on how good you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you good and you can succeed in a league, then you can ask to move into a different league.
Okay.
It may have something to do with other stuff, but I'm pretty sure that's kind of how it go. And you kind of, got to apply, paperwork, all that kind of stuff to be in a league. But yeah, so my boy George just kind of showed me the ropes, and like I remember having like a camp where we spent like either like 3 or 4 days or like close to a week at the school, like maybe 2 or 3 days, and we had like a legit camp, like. And just in camp, I made a few plays here and there that kind of showed people that I understood the game and I could play. And I ended up becoming George's backup. I was second string, and he ended up going down probably third or fourth game into the season, and I became the starter for like. He didn't come back until like the last 2 games of the season. I think we played 10 to 12 games in high school, so I played a lot of football my 10th grade year on varsity, and it was just a learning experience. It was a lot. It was a lot of good football players. And that year was just another building year for me, building my confidence and playing with them dudes that play with a bunch of offers. I played against a bunch of dudes that's been in the NFL. Now I played against Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was at San Clemente when we played him. Again, a bunch of dudes with a bunch of offers. I can sit here and talk about a bunch of dudes I played against, but playing in a real competitive league like that and showing that I could make plays and play proved to me once again that I had the capability, or I was a good football player. You know what I mean? So I was a building block year for me. After that year,
but just about that year, I mean, definitely like you said, a building block year for you, and you also had a special coach that was there to push you too, right?
Oh yeah. You mean my family member coach, or are you talking about Jason Brown?
I'm talking about Jason Brown.
Yeah. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, Last Chance U. What was the name of their college that they was at? Indy.
They were at Indy.
Indy coach. JB was up there.
Independence,
yeah. JB is crazy, but he was a good coach, and he used to look out for us when we can. Good dude. Everything you seen on he's the kind of person that looks just like how it is. He's the exact same way as he look on TV, but good dude. He actually knew my dad, so that was also another reason for me to go there. He grew up playing basketball against my dad because JB is from Compton. Okay. So my dad went to Dominguez High School. Again, Compton is small. So my dad went to Compton Dominguez, and they played. He's a little older than my dad, so my dad don't necessarily I don't think they wasn't hanging out or nothing like that. They wasn't in the same crowd because the age difference. But he used to play basketball at Artesia High School, which ain't too far. So he kind of knew of my dad, so he knew who I was, and that was JB was not necessarily another father figure, but he cared about me because he knew where I came from.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying. So he had an extra bit of attention for me here and there. You know what I mean. So he would kind of show me stuff when he can and give me lessons when he can, like he do all of his kids. So yeah, him and Coach L was the family member Larry. So yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, after that year, I moved a lot in between these times in high school as well. That year, I started off my 9th grade year. I lived 10 minutes away from the school, so I rode the bus to school every day, so my mom could go to work. And then that year, we actually moved into closer to the school, so I could get there a little easier. So I rode the bus there, and then so I moved from Gardena. Serra is also in Gardena, so I moved from Gardena to Carson, California, which is closer to the Compton, Long Beach area, so I could get to Long Beach. And then after that year, my mom had to move again, and another coaching thing, somebody that so my mother is a school teacher. She taught school at Compton Centennial for 22 years or something like that, or 21 years. So I used to always be up there when I was a little boy and growing up, because sometimes she would have to go parent-teacher night, all that kind of stuff. I would have to be there sometimes. So I developed a relationship with the the coach, me just wanting to be around football. I'd be at the school so long. She, trying to get me out her face, go see what Coach Scott is on. And Coach Scott was the coach at the time when I was a little boy. And eventually he let me be his water boy for his team. So I got to see them go and play in state bid championships. They won leagues. And I got to be around a high school football team and really watch and, really learn from them dudes and just be around Coach Scott, number one, and then just football. You know what I'm saying? So Coach Scott ended up getting another high school team. He came back to high school football. He had took a break from it at some point when I was growing up. And he had got a school that year, Los Angeles High School. So when he found that out, he instantly called my mom, like, where's Justin at? So ended up moving to mid-city LA, which is like inner city, like the city of Los Angeles.
Okay.
The mid-city area, like right over the bridge to like South Central, over the 10 freeway. So I moved there, and then my 11th grade year was it was another building year for me. Like moving there, again, having somebody that personally knows me, I got pushed, and Coach Scott he's just as bad as JB is as far as like pushing people and pushing players and making kids become men. You know what I mean? So I got pushed, and my junior year was a learning year for me. I played receiver and corner, and I played better at corner that year. But my receiver, I was, we played in a not as good division. Mm-hmm. That was the only down part about leaving. So I went from my freshman year, I played freshman, but it was good competition at the senior level or at the varsity level. And then Cabrillo also was playing real good. And then I moved into a smaller, like, inner city. Because LA has so many high schools in the city of Los Angeles, in the inner city of Los Angeles, that they're separate from the rest of the high schools. Like, they're all under CIF, California International Football, or California International, something. They're all under that, but it's different sections. So I moved into the inner city section, which isn't as talented in comparison to, like, the Power 5 where St. John Bosco is, and, like, Mater Dei where the bigger schools is at. So that year was, like, it was different moving there, and it was kind of just being around Coach Scott and learning, like, the way he got stuff done and, like, really playing in it versus watching it as a little boy. So it was cool. We all got pushed. We won a championship that year. And, like,
right.
That was my, like, how to win was probably, like, the biggest thing I took from that year. And
okay.
It really was just, like, repetitions. Like, that dude is crazy about practice. Coach Scott was a former, he played receiver at UCLA, played at Northwestern as well. He was an offensive coordinator at UCLA, receiver coach. And so he's an offensive guy. So we used to go, like, he was just a crazy offensive. I remember our first practice was, like, a regular practice, about 2-3 hours, but we started off with some footwork drills, and then we started running a route tree, and we couldn't get past, like, the third or fourth route. Like, it was like a comeback or something, or a curl. We couldn't get past a curl route because we wasn't doing it right. And he was just crazy attention to detail. Like, he was very unforgiving. He would make us do it over and over and over again until we got stuff right. Like, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's what helped you guys win the championship that year. So what did winning that championship your junior year, what did that mean for you in terms of your pursuit of getting to the NFL and just becoming a better football player?
It really just, like, I don't know. I'm not sure if this got more to do with me, who I am personally, or the experience, you know what I mean? Like, well, actually, here's what I say one drive was, considering that we had moved to a lower level play of football, and I played okay, I played decent. A lot of our criticism from like newspaper articles and, like, other stuff was kind of just like that. We wasn't playing against nobody, and to me, playing in the system and knowing, like, I knew it wasn't high school teams that was doing what we was doing. I knew we was teams that was, like, practicing hard, but, like, I knew they didn't have a crazy coach like our coach. Like, I knew they weren't doing what we was doing because it was ridiculous. Like, we did it was 4 cones out, and we doing this for an hour and a half. Like, they're not doing this in high school. It's just crazy. Like, we're running a curl route for literally an hour and a half. We better be the best team in the world running a curl route, because it wasn't like we stopped that day. The next day we came out doing it, we had to do it right. So it was like his attention to detail gave me the confidence as a player, and it gave, like, the rest of us the confidence as a player. And, like, we also, the big part of sports and football is the camaraderie. So we believed in ourselves because of the work we put in as a unit. And, like, I didn't like being criticized and being looked that we was, like, not as good as some of these other teams because that wasn't the case. Like, people just kind of thought that was because we was playing small level football. We was still playing good football is what people wasn't realizing. No matter who it was against, we was going to come out and play good football because this is our culture. Like, this is how we do things because we're winners. So, yeah. And going into that, and, like, again, for me, I wanted to prove that. Like, I was all about proving. And then, again, to go back to the confidence thing, every year for me was kind of like a building block thing. So once I played, I knew I was capable. And then it's from that point on, it turned into, like, you know, how can I be better the next year?
Okay.
And then, so going into that year and playing at that level of football and actually having a big role. So I was the I actually wasn't the leading receiver because we had to do, but I was.
You mean going into your senior year?
My junior year. Junior year, I had a much bigger role than I had on my other teams.
Okay.
As far as our success, so I had to play good on offense and defense. Playing receiver, I was the second leading receiver, but we had another dude who was crazy. He played everything. He played quarterback, running back, wide receiver, safety, and he played everything. And he was the lead guy. So, but I was the second guy, so that was the biggest job I had up until that point. And, again, it was another building year, feeding my confidence. And, like, I knew I was getting better, and I just always wanted to show that. Like, I wanted to show people that I was a good player as well. I just always felt like people didn't really show me a bunch of attention because I may not have played on the bigger teams or I didn't look as big in stature or whatever the case was. But I just always wanted to show people. I just wanted to show people that I was good. So that's what probably pushed my drive as far as, like, wanting to be an NFL player. Plus, I knew NFL players was, again, watching a lot of football and being around football, I knew NFL players were the top of the top. So I knew, like, you have to be extraordinary at something, like, whatever it is. And I knew growing up I wasn't crazy fast or I wasn't crazy big, obviously. So it was, like skill and, like, football knowledge was something that I knew that was my edge, and I got better at that. I knew that, and I obviously tried to get better at my weaknesses, but I also, like, really emphasize using my strength. So knowing the game was something that I always did. Like, to go back, even as a little boy, my mom used to try to make me write in a diary, like, for my mental health, you know. When that stuff probably start coming around, she probably start really being careful. Like, man, kids out there killing themselves. Like, I gotta make sure my baby okay. So she used to try to get me to write in diaries, man. I'll probably write in it like 2 or 3 times, and then that book would completely turn into, like, me just drawing plays. Like, I'll just be drawing plays up and route concepts and how they fit and how they work as, like, a little boy. I was, like, 5th or 6th grade, and I was doing stuff like that. And another story, I also used to just cut the video game on and let the video game play itself, and I just sit and watch. Like, when it wasn't football season, I just sit and watch the plays. I sit and watch what the defenses and see what they're doing and what's the difference in this defense, what worked better, why it worked better. So, yeah, going into my senior year.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to touch on. Like, what was your mindset going into your senior
year? Going into my senior year, I had again, having a coach that knew me personally. I got to sit down and be around him a lot. And, again, he kind of was, you know, coaching is a real special thing, and it's real important, especially in my community where it's not a whole bunch of fathers, even though my father was always around. But Coach Scott was like another father figure of mine. He always just kind of helped me get better in ways that he saw that I could get better. You know what I mean? So one of his emphasis with me personally was when we got a chance to talk, he would just tell me to have more. Like, he knew confidence was something that I struggled with, and that was something that he used to really try to put on me. You know what I mean? So we would watch film of my junior year, and we won the championship, and it's like there were a lot of – he was trying to show me where I lack, like how he knows that I lack confidence. And it was with literal football plays, like literal football plays where I catch a 60-yard pass and I end up being short 1 yard. And, like, or I make a real good play and I'm just short of making this an even bigger play. You know what I mean? So it was like he used to always tell me, you're good, but, like, you could be much better when you start believing in yourself. And you're going to start believing in yourself, or I'm going to know you're going to start believing in yourself because you'll finish a play like that. Like, you won't be short at the one. Like, you won't almost do something good. Like, you'll know you can do it and do it. So that was kind of something I used to always think about. And, like, going into the season. And then on top of that, my junior year, I kind of got put... Well, actually, no, probably going into my senior year, I got put into, like... my junior year as well. Because he used to always test people. Coach Scott, crazy, man. he used to just test people and like 7-on-7 is a big deal.
Yeah.
So like in our passing tournaments, he would do crazy stuff sometimes. Like he would just. I remember we played against a dude who had 4 scholarship offers from the inner city. He went to Hamilton High School, and we had scrimmaged them in a 7-on-7, and we whooped them. Like we was handling them really, but like he was just a dude. He had a lot of offers, which was big in the inner city because it ain't a whole bunch of kids in the inner city that got offers, and generally when they do, they're skill positions. So I remember going up there and we was playing him, we was beating him, and he just got the jawing, like the young dude was jawing. He like reeked confidence, cornerback all around. And he just would talk, and like my coach, he always felt we was good, but he used to really like feed us to the wolves in a sense of. So what he did that day was like he wanted to see where I was and where I had grown in a year and had I grown. So he in a 7-on-7 setting, he put a trips to the other side and told everybody out loud, "Y'all do not have a route. We're running a route right here. We're coming right at you." It was just me and that dude. And like on a play, I ran a comeback. In the first one, I caught it and I hit the ground and it came out and he got up screaming, but I won the route. Like I really was wide open. And then the second time it like sailed out of bounds or something. And the third time I think I caught it. And then all of those plays, it was obvious. Like he just said, since you want to talk so much, we gonna come right at you. And like it just ended up being a personal thing. And it was his way of like throwing me in the fire in the sense of like you won't know who you are until you get met with something like that. Like you get met with adversity and you know, and he understood that. So he would throw us in the fire and like in that situation, I didn't necessarily win because like I won a rep, but I technically dropped it because they bounced out and then by the time I caught a rep, another rep had sailed out of bounds. So it was like that one didn't necessarily end with a win or loss, but for him it said a lot about my growth as a player, and it kind of said like, you're not all the way there yet, you know what I mean? And he and I had that conversation somewhere along the line after that. So, as we kept doing that, especially in 7-on-7, like I think 7-on-7 is where I gained a lot of confidence in particular because I got thrown in more situations like that and I started to answer. Like I started to really believe in myself that I'm actually better than a person from across from me, literally. So the next time I got thrown in that situation, I answered. I don't remember the specific situation, but when I got called on to be the guy that does whatever it is that needs to be done, I was able to do it. So being put in those situations and being able to answer gave me a lot of confidence going into that last season. And when you play those 7-on-7 tournaments, it'd be a lot of teams and a lot of players and like just from all over. It's kind of random because you just play at tournaments and then now you playing against another big time school. So it's not really leagues in that. So I got to go up against competition that I normally wouldn't in a season. So going up against dudes that had big time offers and being able to beat them, I started to realize like I'm really a good player. Like it was no reason to be intimidated by none of these dudes because I was just as good, if not better. So going into my senior season, it was really just about proving that to myself, really. Like kind of to Coach Scott in a way, but not so much. Like me and him had a good relationship because he was a crazy dude and some of his stuff was crazy and you can even argue like out of line, just like Jason Brown. You can even argue that some of his tactics are crossing the line. But I always understood what he was getting at because I knew him personally. So,
but unfortunately, you guys weren't able to bring home a second championship your senior year. And in the previous interview, you said you think that was the moment you truly learned the value of leadership. Could you talk more about what that experience taught you?
Oh yeah. So yeah, my senior year I had a real good year. Like about 5 games through that season. Through that time I hadn't really had any scholarship offers. Like 5 games through that season, my numbers was crazy and like a lot of the coaches were starting to call and ask like, hey, who was that? You know what I mean? But they offer kids early now. When I was coming out of high school, most kids was offered by now and committed to where they was going to go to school by football season. So, so going into that season, we was playing well. We was undefeated. I don't think we lost a game until we might have been undefeated that year. And I think we actually tied a game. Yeah, we actually tied a game because my school didn't have lights and we used to have to buy lights. So one of the games we didn't buy lights because we played early enough and we thought the game would be over, but it ended up not being over. And after a certain time, the city of LA, like, you can't play because it doesn't count. Like, it's dark and it starts to play in a factor of the game. If you don't got lights, it has to stop at this time. So anyway, that year was a real good year. Like, we hit on all cylinders. Like, we was really rolling as an organization because we had just won, and then this was our second year, and practically everybody was back. So we was getting the full thing turning. And another conversation with Coach Scott that he would always have is he would always push me into the leader role, as far as like getting other people going. And I kind of always struggle with that because I'm an only child and I'm pretty selfish. So it's like, why I got to talk to other people? Like, that's kind of your job. Like, you the coach, you get other people to do stuff. I do my job. They should do theirs. So, but it was, football, it takes all 11 players at all times to get things done. So leadership is something that's so important. And in that season, the game didn't come down to nothing necessarily that required leadership, but me just being unsuccessful and getting us to understand how important some things was in the game, and like, or some of our inexperienced dudes that had to play, like, just that whole situation showed me that, like, you just need, like, leadership goes beyond. Well, first off, I learned how difficult it really is. Like, I just learned maneuvering that it really takes like some real skill and real time and effort to really do something like that. And like, I just learned how valuable it was because I knew that having it that season would have won us the year. Like, we would have won a championship because of it. And like, it took me losing to realize that I can't just sit. What does it help my team if I'm the only one that knows how to be good and I can't spread that amongst the rest? Or, you know what I mean? I can't or for example, if I have all the knowledge about what's about to happen and how it's going to happen and how I can make a play, if the other 10 guys don't know. So if I'm not pulling everybody with me, I mean, it's cliche, but like they say, in football, you are strong as your weakest link. So if you don't bring them with you, y'all will be weak as a unit, no matter how strong the strongest link is. So yeah, that's pretty much what I learned from that year. It wasn't nothing specific. It's just
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you wrap up your senior year, and eventually you decide to accept the scholarship to UTEP. But talk to me a little bit about the recruiting process and how you eventually decided on UTEP.
Yeah. So my again, like I said, after 5 games, me and Coach Scott made like a mid-season highlight, and a lot of people knew about it. A lot of people was kind of asking who I was. It's because I had a bunch of touchdowns. I really receiver was what got me a bunch of my attention. I had a bunch of touchdowns through game 5 and a bunch of yards, and we was winning and beating teams that people didn't think we was team. Because we also moved up. We also moved up in terms of like the level of competition we was playing. So it was a lot of people that didn't think we was beating some of them teams, but we started beating them. We were like, oh, they legit. Like, people started to realize that, and I was a big part of it. And yeah, I spoke to a lot of teams, but by the end of the year, like, a lot of teams were like, we like you, but you're so low on the recruiting board. We don't really have any more scholarships left. Like, we gave a lot of ours out. So like, toward the back end of the year was kind of when I was waiting to get my opportunity to see if another school would call. I continued to play well throughout that season, and by the end of the season and going into like January, February, like around signing time and stuff like that, I hadn't really had any offers. And I think, no, you know what? February 3rd is when they signed in high school, I think. So by like January, I didn't really like the middle of January, I didn't have no offers. And I think UTEP offered me we would have visits here and there because there were I went to quarterback with 2 of my boys that were a year younger than me. They had big time offers. So it would be big schools at the school all the time. But I was just later in my recruiting process. I was a senior, so they didn't really have scholarships for me. And, I was just at the bottom of their recruiting board. So they said, if we can, we'll come back if something happens, blah, 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 whatever. But no real offer. So I think UTEP finally offered, or I was about to get an offer from Sacramento State would have been my offer, and I think they found out that UTEP wanted me not too long after they visited the school. So they visited the school, they sat with me and one of my other buddies, and they kind of talked to me about coming up there and the program and jerseys, uniforms they pitched. And then a few days later, the UTEP dude came up there, and he had really showed interest, and like he told me, I think he had let my coach know they're probably gonna offer me depending on what happens real soon. So they ended up being the only school that offered me. So, for me, and that's why I ended up signing there. And for me, I had always been so concerned about college because like college is such a big deal in like your life and the decision you make, and I had never wanted to be faced with that decision. Like, how do I differentiate from going to USC versus UCLA? UCLA was my dream school for the record, but I'd always wondered how, even my buddy, how you differentiate Oregon from USC. Like, how do you differentiate these Power 5 programs? Like, they all gonna offer you necessarily the same pitch. Like, they're all gonna offer you the same thing. Like, it's not to say that it's not like we going for school, but we there for their football program, and all their football programs is relatively big. So it's like, what would be the difference? And I always, when I prayed that night, I would just ask for one school. I just wanted one school to just peek out and be the only school that wanted me. So
okay,
yeah.
And when you got to UTEP, what were those first couple of days of camp like?
Let me see.
And what were some of your first impressions of college football?
My first impressions of college football, we was in. So UTEP goes to camp, and we used to go to camp about 2-3 hours away, or maybe 3 or 4. We would I want to say we rode a bus. We rode a bus to like, what's the name of this area, man? Not Alpine. Alpine was where they used to. Wow, I can't remember where we used.
And for everyone who doesn't know, UTEP's in Texas, El Paso.
Texas, El Paso, yeah. So New Mexico not being far, we used to have camp in New Mexico. Ruidoso, New Mexico is primarily like a skiing place, like a ski resorts out there, but people golf. And that's the only thing they really do. But we used to have camp up there, and I just remember, what was like, it really was just crazy, the schedule. Like, the scheduling was like, it was cool and it was fun. I really just was enjoying being around like football all the time and being around my teammates. Like, we was just always around each other. Lunch, Lyft, dinner, breakfast, practice, meetings. Like, it was just that whole situation. But yeah, just going into it for me, I just remember just trying to be trustworthy. I think like that's the first thing. I wanted to play, and I wanted to show the coaches that I can play. So yeah, the only thing I remember is that Aaron Jones not taking many reps. He was up there, and like he had got hurt the year before, and like he took practically no reps. He took the first 2 reps, and like they almost didn't count as reps because nobody better not touch him, or like our coach was gonna go crazy. So he used to take the first 2 reps, and then yeah, I just made my first few plays in camp and kind of showed coaches that I was somebody they could trust. So
okay.
yeah.
So during your time there, the program wasn't that successful.
Bad.
But you were definitely there and made some game-breaking plays yourself. For example, if I have it correct, you guys were on a 20-game losing streak at some point, and you guys were in the game against Rice.
Yep.
You made a 4th-down interception. You guys ended up sealing the deal for the win. So tell me about that moment and what it meant for you and for your team to snap that 20-game losing streak.
It obviously was a big deal. We had always talked about that day too. Like, after losing all of those games in the second season, my sophomore year, I was a sophomore, and like primarily our DB group was juniors at that time. So we had all just talked about like the next time we win, like when we win, man, we gonna go crazy, like, and we kind of was just waiting for that moment. And also, it was kind of to prove, to us, we had been trying so long to just do whatever it took to win. Like, at that point, playing good, because we were actually a pretty good defensive core, especially a defensive back group. Like, we was solid. One of my buddies playing for Miami, and like a few of the other ones playing in XFL, CFL. So it was like, we was pretty talented. We just couldn't get the job done for a long time. And like, we used to break it on get the job done. Like, just no matter how you do it, do it. So like, when we closed the Rice game out, we actually got up. Like, that wasn't a close game throughout most of the game. And then they ended up coming back at the end, and we
They scored like 21 points on the answer or something like that?
We was like, oh, crap. Like, no way. Like, no way we finna lose this. And like, I just wanted to be the one that sealed it. So, yeah, like the drive before that, I almost made a crazy play on the screen, which would have ended it. like, because they would have just ran out of time. And, like, they threw a screen, and I almost made the play, and I got so mad. Like, I got furious because I wanted to make the play so bad. And then it just kind of ended up happening where we was in a situation, we was in 2-man, and the play finally came, and then we picked it, and that was it. Like, it was like, finally, like, kind of just felt like a break the chains is what they called it. Break the chains was the hashtag. We was on our way back from Rice's in Houston. So on the plane back, we had...
And y'all also hadn't beat Rice in 13 years in Rice.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy. That's true, though. That's very true. That's crazy. Damn, you just gave me a fact. I didn't even know that about my own conference. But, yeah, so breaking the chains, man, it was a bunch of beer drank that night. I didn't drink, but a bunch of beer. And, like, even the city of El Paso was excited. I remember getting back on the bus and people actually, like, I don't think they had chains and locks or nothing there, but people was excited. Like, they was like, man, finally. Like, it was people waiting for us to get off the bus and walk into the locker room. So, yeah, that was a good feeling.
And at UTEP, you also played as a true freshman. And you pretty much played every position in the defensive backfield. Nickel, rover, safety, corner, obviously. How do you think that impacted you as a player?
Again, like we talked about, like football IQ and like just overall football awareness and football intelligence is something that was like one of my strengths, and it was something that like I always wanted to get better at. So playing the rover spot, playing the nickel spot first helped me get a better understanding of like the fronts, like defense in total, and like it helped me get a better understanding of fitting gaps and how important it is and how all our jobs work together, but from the first 2 levels instead of just the back level. So like that was just good for me, and it was something that I didn't like doing it at first, but all I was told at first was you can make more plays there, and I was like, yeah. I'd actually played nickel in high school. In high school, my 10th grade year, that's how I played varsity as the third DB. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of just figuring that out in college football at a high level of football and like playing, getting to know the box better, getting to be on blitzes, getting to understand spilling versus boxing, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that stuff added to my football knowledge and just made me an overall better player. And that was what I took from it the most. It really was just me trying to get out on the field at the end of the day and just be in a position where I could make plays. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it just taught me more about football and helped me play more football and get me in more games, and experience is invaluable. So
okay,
yeah.
All right. So your college career, at this point, your college career is over. But just like most college football players, the goal is still get to the NFL. So in terms of getting to the next level, how important was it for you to invest in yourself after college, and what did that involve doing?
So for me in particular, like you said, NFL is the goal, and it was the goal, like you said, since I was a little kid. So for me, it wasn't something that I walked around with every day necessarily, which is, to me, I think a good thing. But I just knew, like I said, the only thing I really associated with the NFL is I just knew it was the best of the best and the elite of the elite. So to me, I just had to get better every day and every way I could. And that's how I saw it. And eventually, at some point, again, it started with me as a little kid. So as I grow older, it just became me getting better and no longer necessarily in pursuit of the NFL. So it was a long-term goal at the time, and all I could focus on my short-term goal. My short-term goal was just getting better, and that's the only thing I saw every day. So investing in myself, it just ended up costing me so after, my pro day and all of that kind of stuff, the COVID situation happened right when I was done with college. So I moved home, and for a long time, I just, again, getting better was a thing. So I knew of some coaches. I wanted to kind of get together with a trainer so I can, keep my skill, stay sharp. And I also knew speed was my thing. I didn't run very fast on my pro day. So I just did what I could to find I ended up getting in contact with an Olympian sprinter. And I was just hitting guys up trying to find out, hey, man, I would just let them know my situation as far as money. It wasn't a whole lot of agents that were in pursuit of me because I wasn't, they didn't see me as getting drafted very high. So no agents were real interested because they wouldn't make a bunch of money. So I would just let guys know my situation, like speed trainers, like, look, I'm in this situation. I want to run faster. I want to work with you, but my budget ain't really, it ain't what yours generally costs, or, is there something that we could work out? I'll probably hit up 5 coaches, coming back home. So I finally got with one, and working wasn't really an option because I wasn't finished with school. So like working, like getting a job wasn't really like wouldn't really be it would be hard for me to get a good job or a job that was going to pay real well without finishing school. So, and then on top of that, just the time, I wasn't really going to have time because I was still finishing school. So, only thing I could really find suitable was driving Lyft, like me and my supporting cast, which is actually my brother's mom and my mom and my pop. I kind of, I spoke to them individually, and they spoke here and there. We kind of just decided like Lyft is probably the thing that I should do because it was free and schedule and I could do whatever. So from that point, it was kind of just like driving Lyft to make the money to pay. And, Lyft don't pay the greatest. It pay cool in California, but it really was just getting me by. I was living with my parents or like another mom for me, so it wasn't like I had to pay rent or nothing. But it really was just waking up, driving Lyft, or working out first, driving Lyft, so I could pay for that Lyft that I just did and that running session at the end of the week when he didn't ask for his money, but when it was time to pay him. So that's what it literally came down to. Like after the COVID year was that year, so being at home and being in the house when everything was locked down before I could even work out again, it was like a short 1 month period where like I was real uncertain, and I was kind of trying to figure out, was God telling me that I was done with football, you know what I mean, and kind of was trying to find my direction. And real quick, another thing for me, football was never my entire identity. That was something my dad always put on me when I was younger, so I knew there were other things that I enjoyed doing because I had done other things and I was good at, so it wasn't my entire identity. So there was a period of time where I just wasn't really sure, like, was it time for me to let it go or not? And it's kind of a real sad thing for me trying to find my way. It was just real hard. Like I couldn't really see no light at the end of the tunnel per se in chasing my goal to NFL or even really where I wanted to go as a young adult. You know what I mean? So investing in myself really is what ended up working out in my favor. And I just kind of only focused on my short-term goal, which was getting better. And at the time I had to run faster. So.
Okay. And when you found out the news about going to Europe to play football, what were your first thoughts and how did that situation even come about?
My first thoughts was kind of just like, damn, I don't know much about Germany. Like, you know what I mean? But my the trainer I trained with, Mike Scott, he had actually played in. So again, my college roommate, I trained with him a few times when we would come home. He's also from California. So I would train with him a few times, and his dad trains quarterbacks and receivers, but he has a buddy who trained cornerbacks. So I trained with him a few times, and then coming back after college, I hit him up and was like, I want to really be a part of the program. You know what I mean? Like I worked with him a few times, but working with him a few times, and we put in work. So I was like, working with us a few times don't count. Like you got to really come out a lot of consistent days and get the work in, and we call break shop Mike and really get your brakes fixed, get your brakes tuned. So Mike had played in Munich with my roommate's dad. So he would tell me, my trainer Mike, we would be in sessions and he told me about when he used to play here and there. He would kind of tell me about Europe overall because he played in a few other spots, but he kind of told me about Europe, and he kind of put a good taste in my mouth about what he experienced. You know what I mean? He didn't really talk about, like, every time he spoke about it, it was good. So in my mind, It was a good taste knowing that both of them had played over there. And so Steve, my roommate's dad, he had played with Max. Max Potts was his offensive coordinator, and he played quarterback. So Max gave him a call, and they were looking for a cornerback. And then Steve just asked me, would I be willing to go to Germany? And at the time, there was no other football around. Like some of my previous coaches were in the XFL, and nobody was playing football. So at that time, I just wanted to play football. I wanted to play football before I had been too far removed from the sport to where it wasn't something I even really felt like doing anymore. So, that was like my opportunity, and I kind of just jumped on it.
Okay. All right. So you signed with the Hamburg Sea Devils. in the new European League of Football, and you fly over to Hamburg. So at which point did it finally click for you that you were living on your own and in a completely different country? And what was that culture shock like for you?
Yeah. So living on my own wasn't completely new because I went off to college again in Texas. So I was from California, so I had left home to go to Texas. So it wasn't completely like, and I had always did a good job with that stuff. Like my mom traveled a lot. She also used to do radio marketing, and so she used to travel, and she used to encourage me to travel, and traveling was something she always wanted to do. So I wasn't ever like afraid to do it or nothing like that. So coming out here wasn't really, not to say it didn't mean much, but I wasn't shocked in the transportation of coming here and then being out here. Like it didn't really hit me that I was in a different culture until I hate to always talk about the bike lane, man, but I was in the bike lane and like the lady, like she really was not rude, but she really let me know, like, get out the way. Like I didn't understand nothing that she said, but I knew she was telling me get out the way, like, and not, you know, hey, this isn't the bike lane, like really get out the way. And I was like, man, it's crazy, like, you know what I mean? And like, you know, walking around some more, and I think that, and then, you know, I always talk about the bike lane in a negative way, but I also knew I was in a different place when you can kind of feel the quote unquote safety. Like, again, I'm from inner city LA and Compton, California, like, you know, in that part of California. And it's like, I always know where I'm at. I always got to worry about my surroundings, who around me, like where I'm at, all of that kind of stuff. And like, after a few weeks of being here, I realized that it's not really like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt the peaceful energy from Germany. Like, Sundays used to trip me out. That's another one. Sundays used to trip me out. I would come outside and it was tons of people outside. Like, it's almost like I never felt that many people outside on a Sunday. And I'm like, what's going on? But everybody was riding their bikes, walking, enjoying the Ulster, you know what I mean? Eating. There's a lot of people eating. It's hard to get a table, I remember. And I was just like, man, like, I can really appreciate that. Like, that's kind of what I just remember noting being here. And that was kind of like the shock initially. Like, I don't have to be, and it was kind of similar to El Paso in this sense. I don't have to be worried about my safety, and like that's like a big thing that kind of like was big for me as far as like letting my guard down and realizing like, wow, I can really be whoever it is I want to be. Like I can really just be myself. I don't got to worry about looking a certain way or any of that kind of stuff that I normally deal with. So yeah,
most of the most if not all the other Americans I've done interviews with, they all say the same thing. I mean, these are guys who, most of the guys that I've interviewed so far are guys who live here now, and you know, I would ask them sometimes the pros and cons of living in Germany, for example. And number one on their list, also number one on my list, is also safety, man. It's just a complete different mindset. I remember when I first got over here, I was in Kiel, and even at night, like if I was coming back from somewhere late at night, I would just walk in the middle of the street. I wasn't walking on any sidewalks by myself. I'm in the middle of the street, so I can see all cars coming in my direction. So I can just, I'm not walking next to any doors in the darkness. I just need to see everything coming before it gets to me. So I would walk in the middle of the street, and then after a couple of weeks, I realized, like, you know, I'm bringing this mentality with me, but you know, that's what I know. So I won't be over here and get caught slipping because I'm feeling like everything's like, oh, it's just, I'm not at home anymore. But I was still precautious, but at the same time, I slowly learned, you know, I don't really have to move like that over there. But I never forget it. I still move like that, but I'm still more aware that it's unlikely, but, you know, it's just definitely much safer over here. So I can totally relate to that.
So you still walk in the middle of the street?
Nah, I stopped doing that, but
I feel you on that.
I still check my corners though.
Absolutely, I 100% feel you on that.
If it's too dark, then I just walk around. I don't walk in the middle of the street. I just walk around the car. But like if it's like a real dark corner or something like that, I just don't walk by it. I just take the long way around just to make sure I can peek around and see what's in there, make sure nothing's in there. I don't shine any light or anything like that. But right. I'm just more aware not to put myself in a position where somebody can just jump out on me or something like that. Even though that probably won't happen, it's just that's my thought process.
Just in case. I also
right.
I also do the exact same thing for the record. I don't do much walking. I use the scooters.
Yeah.
But I actually got in trouble because I been dead in the middle of the street just like you said. I'm cool. I'm not gonna be the one caught slipping because I don't think, but
Right.
I realize I'm, like you said, carrying that mentality. So
Yeah. All right. So in the end, talking about the Sea Devils and playing football in Europe, you end up having a great season with the Sea Devils. Team started out 6-0, made it to the first ever ELF Bowl, but unfortunately couldn't pull out the win. You finished in the three-way tie for first in interceptions and one of the top returners in the league. Also nominated as ELF Special Teams Player of the Year. By the time this interview comes out, the winner will have already been announced. Also selected as a cornerback for the first ever ELF All-Star team. And your game against Team USA is coming up on Sunday. So through this entire European football experience, what would you say you've learned about yourself, and what would you say you've learned about the game of football?
I'll start with myself. And again, it's always been something for me in particular, or me specifically. And it's kind of just confidence. Like, I learned how confidence can be beneficial for me. And I just learned in what ways being confident works for me. I'm not sure if I'm saying that the best way, but confidence was always a weird thing to me because I had always confused confidence with arrogance, and I closely related them. And I hated arrogant people. Like, as much as I love Kobe, I hated Kobe. Like, growing up, I hated Kobe. And, like, I did too much doing this. Like, I got pictures in Celtics jersey, and my homies would kill me for it. But, like, I grew up hating Kobe for the reasons I love him today as a competitor, but I saw it as so arrogant, you know what I mean? And now that I'm in my first time in professional sports, I really got closer to why I hated Kobe so much and learned to love him for that exact same thing, especially with him being gone, rest in peace. But I learned to really love him. And Kobe was just huge for me because he was in LA. So he big for LA, period. He means everything to us. So I got closer to Kobe in this year and in this season when I started applying confidence, and I really started to be able to differentiate arrogance and confidence and apply confidence into my game. So personally, that was just what I took from this year. And I also learned about myself, even though I would consider this, but I just learned that I'm capable of persevering adversity, even though I already knew that, but having to deal with it directly, I think was different for me because, when you growing up and you got somebody to help you, like my mom, it was me and my mom with a lot of our problems and a lot of the adversity that we dealt with, or me and my family. I lived with my mom, not to say my dad wasn't around, but I lived with my mom, so it was me and my mom dealing with eviction notices and all of that kind of stuff and being tight on money, et cetera, et cetera. And, becoming a younger adult, I'm 23. And the college thing was the first thing that I would say directly applied to me that wasn't like football or school or, it was a direct personal thing that you have to decide. Like, it was my first real big fork in the road, you know what I mean? And when I look back at it, it was a real sad thing in my mind, and it was just a low state for me. But to me, I learned that I am who I thought I was in the face of adversity, because at the end of the day, in that time, I still spent every dollar I had, most of my time, on investing in myself. And so if I believed in myself at my lowest, I should always be able to believe in myself, is what I've taken from that specific time in my life. So, that's what I took personally. And then as far as football, I just learned that football is one, big in other places. Had no clue about that. Like, I had no clue how big football can really be. Like, again, I done played in stadiums with 90,000 people, and that was a great crowd playing in that championship, in that ELF final. Like, I almost love those pictures more than when I played in some of the bigger stadiums. Like, not to say a photo playing against Texas don't mean nothing, but that photo mean more to me because, one, it's a part of my first European experience, but it's really people that love and appreciate the game like I do, but are from a completely separate place, can come out here and pack big stadiums to watch, and they really love the sport. So I really enjoyed that game, even though we came short. Like, that game meant a lot to me, and just knowing that it's also real good talent out here. Like seeing some of the other guys and seeing that they came from a different background and that they ain't played football that long is really impressive. How good some of them are. So those are probably the two things I'll take away.
All right, that's cool. Real interesting feedback there. So before we wrap things up, I'd like to do a quick round of short questions, short answers. So I ask a short question, you just give me a short answer.
Mm.
All right. Top 3 countries you would like to visit.
Dang, that one is Egypt. Greece. One more. I don't want to go to. Man, that's a good question. We've been to Spain, but Spain don't count. Like it don't count. Now, like being that one time we went makes me want to go really see Spain. So
okay,
Spain.
So Spain. All right. Yeah. Okay, dipping sauces: honey mustard, blue cheese, or ranch.
Ranch, not close. Like that is not ranch. Honey mustard, no way.
All right, to each his own. All right, spend the night in the desert, in the forest, or in snow-capped mountains.
Desert. Snow, forest, no. Hate them kind of animals. Man. Snow, no chance.
Okay. Would you rather have a fast car, fast SUV, or a motorcycle?
I just got into SUV. I just got into motorcycles recently. But SUV. I'd rather have a fast SUV.
Okay. So, favorite book and or favorite author? So you can answer both if you want.
Yeah. I actually think my opinion on this has changed, but I can't remember right now. But I'll probably go with The Alchemist. That's my favorite book by Paulo Coelho. Yeah, that's my favorite book. You said author or?
And or, I mean, you can answer both if you want, but you can also just answer one.
Yeah, I'll just stick with The Alchemist. Like, The Alchemist was my book. It was one of my favorite reads. Like, I really enjoyed reading that.
Okay. Chucks or Vans?
Vans. Easy.
Favorite snack?
Chips.
Chips?
Chips.
Okay. You know I was expecting you to say cheese.
Watch out. I eat cheese, but not that much. Chips is priority.
All right. Take a chance or stick to the plan?
Take a chance, man. Yeah, for sure.
I know. You're a corner.
For sure. You got to. You got to.
Okay. Baked potato or French fries?
French fries. Not close.
All right. And this one, it's okay if you give a longer answer. Who's been the biggest influence in your life and why?
Man, it had to be my parents. I can't pick one of them. It had to be my parents. Cause my mom is just such a blind, faithful person. Like she's such a bright character, man. Like my mom is such a loving person, and I think that's where I learned the word love, like what it really means, from my mother, and not just I don't know how you would say, like not just like motherly love, but just love in general, like the way she treat people and the way she talk to people, the way she do what she can for people. Like she just a loving person all around, and like I got the same spirit as my mother, so that's something that I took from her and closely watched and learned. And then as far as my father, like my dad was huge in my life, like just super minuscule lessons that he showed, and like I think the one biggest thing one of the biggest things I could speak about is like chess. Like chess was a big deal to us. So like how to critical think and how to use your mind and how to just plan, like how to stay 2 steps ahead of your opponent, and just making decisions and analyzation. Analyzation is what I took from like real big from my pops and critical thinking.
All right. Okay, so that's it for the short question, short answer segment. All right, so you mentioned in the interview that the one thing that's forever on your mind through most of your years would be if you're going to become the man that you want to be. Where would you say you are on that journey, and in what way have these 6 months in Europe influenced the next chapter of that journey?
I want to say I'm actually on the, like, as far as I feel like I've come, and I think this is a testament to show how far I've come. I understand and I feel like I'm at the beginning. Like, it's been, life has taken me a lot of different directions. It's a lot of weaving and, ducking and jumping and, finding my way to my own journey. And, again, being an analyst, all of that stuff was well documented in my brain. And I think I've done a good job of taking so much from that. And this 6 months, I'm super excited to get into analyzing it. Like, I haven't really yet, and I kind of just been doing what I can to just enjoy the moment. Like, living in the present has been one of like the things I've been thinking a lot about. And my mom is that way for sure, but it's just been something that I've been reading, and it's been coming up a lot. So I've been trying to really live in the moment and be in the present and suck everything in, but I haven't, because it's been so different for me being here in Europe, and there's so much going on. It's so much stuff to take in and document that I haven't got all of it. So right now I'm just writing the story in my head, and like I'm excited to sit and like be able to analyze and look at it. But like I said, the few things that I've taken are pretty big, and like I think those will probably be the biggest points, but I'm sure some other stuff that I'm going to look back that I found out and that I'm going to learn to apply and move forward with. So I'm at the beginning, man. I'm excited.
Okay. What have been some of the most eye-opening things for you about living outside of the U.S. and living in Europe?
That's a ton of it. We are arrogant in America. That's probably like like on the biggest or bigger like scales. That's probably what I noticed. And arrogant in the sense of not here. I won't always say arrogant. It just, we are arrogant, but I realize that we're the newest country. Like, that alone should not necessarily keep us from being confident, but it should point to how there's obviously not much history. So being here has made me realize, one, how I should have paid more attention in geography and history class. and then number two, that I'm living in some of that stuff that I read about. Like, some of the stuff that I read about is not far. Like, only thing that I really liked about history was like Egypt and Greek mythology. So to think that that's like right here is like crazy, you know what I mean? And then growing up being around the Bible and like the places that they were talking about are over here. Like, some of them places are over here, so it's like, that's crazy. Like, it's real eye-opening to me. And so being here in Germany and like seeing other cultures and realizing that you can point to why the country is a certain way. Like, for example, privacy. Like, we can literally look in history and show like, oh, privacy became a big deal in Germany because of this situation, because the history is much longer. So being able to understand and connect the dots through history is like huge. Like, that's mind blowing to me that it even happens in the first place at all. Like, because in America, it's like, we're so new. We don't even, that's not even something that ever really comes up. You can kind of just be like, to me, the closest thing in my life is like 9/11. And I can't even closely connect the dots with 9/11 without my dad. And my dad told me, like, man, I used to jump on an airplane, and I used to show up at the airplane about 15 minutes before my flight, grab something to drink, walk to the back of the plane by myself, jump on the back and wait for everybody to come in. Or I jump right on the back, they'll close the front and back doors and just leave. And I'm like, what? I got to go to LAX 3 hours ahead. So, being able to connect the dots and put stuff together with history is like something that's like huge being out here. That's cool.
Man, that's cool. I'm happy for you that you had the chance to experience that. I mean, and continue to experience that. So, it's always an experience to in my opinion, of course, from my experience, to leave the U.S. I love the U.S. Not saying anything's bad about it, but it's all not even just to leave the U.S., but just to leave where you spent the majority of your life.
Yeah.
Because it's the same when people leave Germany and go to the U.S. Well, not just because it's the U.S. If they just leave Germany and go somewhere else, it's always eye-opening because they've grown up, in their own environment. Things have been a certain way, and then you go somewhere else, it's totally different. People act completely differently than what you're used to. So, like I said, I'm happy for you that you had a chance to experience that because it's just something that you can just grow from, that most people typically do grow from.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think that, I just want to hit on real quick how traveling was, to me, it was always, people would say it, and I just thought people were saying it to be bougie. You know what I mean? To put themselves above somebody. But, I could absolutely see how traveling is the best education. Like you said, just seeing how people live and, culturally it being so different and, it being removed from where you from. I think for me, that clicked in my head. It actually clicked in my head before I even had the opportunity to come out here. Like I said, my mom was big on traveling, and you hear people talk about wanting to travel all the time as a young adult, because that's when people generally had enough money, had the funds to travel. So they oh, I want to go do this, and I'm like, what is the big deal? And then I realized in my head, it's ridiculous to sit and paint a picture of the world in your head and never have seen 1% of it. You haven't seen 1% of the world, and you create this picture and image, and then you give it to a child. You give it to your seed, your children, and you have a 1% paint. It's your paint just won't be very accurate. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? So that sat in my head one day, and I'm like, oh wow. And then the opportunity to be in here came up. So I'm the happiest. I'm grateful.
What advice would you give to young athletes about taking care of their bodies, their mental well-being, and following their dreams?
Taking care of bodies, man. My pop used to tell me all the time to stretch. He used to tell me that all the time, and I'm like, it really went right in one ear and out the other. And I actually listened, but, as a young kid, he told me that. I'm 7, 8 years old, man. Stretch for what? Warm up for what? I'm just playing. I go out and play. That's kind of how I go. And then, you learn in physical education class that it's better for your muscles. And it's man, whatever. But I'll tell you what, man, I'd be a far better athlete if I had listened to a percent of what my dad used to tell me was stretching, man, one more time over the course of practice, whatever. So taking care of your body is the number one thing. You use it. You know what I mean? That's your tool to get to where you want to go. So yeah, your body is your tool as an athlete. So, the better you take care of your tool, the more effective it'll be. So that's kind of how I put it. I absolutely take it serious. Just get into yoga, man. Yoga is it became something that I started doing. And, at first I got into it just for the stretching part, just to, for that part. And then what yoga is actually for, the breathing, became super important to me. And that's actually unfortunately, that's what keeps me to it more than the stretching does. That became the most important part to me. So taking care of your body is number one. What was the next one? Just remind me.
Mental well-being and following your dreams.
Mental well-being. No, yoga was perfect. It goes right into, taking care of yourself mentally. That's the number one thing. You know what I mean? Yoga was perfect for that. I think that's what the breathing part is for. Breathing is super underestimated to me, even by me at some point, and then until I realized I needed it. But also, we all come from, the people that I know, we all come from a struggle of some sort. You know what I mean? It's important to take care of that, and if you need help, ask for that. And that's the most courageous thing. And as we get older, it's harder to do. As you keep moving, there's so much stuff that just get thrown on your life. It's important to find, a balance. Me and my father always talk about moderation. Mm-hmm. So, everything in moderation, and it's important to just kind of keep that balance so you don't find yourself tipping off the edge in either direction. So, mental health, of course, is important. And then the last one was?
Yeah, just advice about following your dreams for young athletes or...
Oh, yeah. Be selfish. I'm an only child, so I halfway grew up as an only child and I'm the baby, so it's easy for me to just sit and say like, "I'll be selfish every time." Like that's like my instant way of thinking. But it also comes from other things as far as like my mom she make big sacrifices so I can follow my own dreams. So I take it very seriously as far as making sure that I do what I want to do because I know that somebody else gave their life up. So for me, like somebody gave their life up so they couldn't do what they wanted to do, so I could. So I take full advantage every chance I get to do whatever it is, be the person I want to be, do things the way I want to. Like at the end of the day, you just gonna you gotta live your life and like you gotta be happy with it. You know what I mean? Or the way I see it is you want to be happy with your life. So the best way to do that is make decisions for yourself. Like do whatever it is that you feel like is important when it's important, and follow whatever it is you want to follow, and chase your dream, whatever it is, and like block you're the only thing that matters at the end of the day. Like I said, you got to live with your life, and like when you look back at it and you look yourself in the mirror, like that's gonna be the only thing that you have, like your own life. You know what I mean? So
what would you say are some of the most important things that football has taught you about life?
One of them being adversity. Like football is just hard. Like football is a hard game, and things don't always go your way in football. Hardly do they ever like all go your way in football. So that's probably one of the bigger things that football has taught me as far as. But did you say specifically football though?
Yeah.
Yeah. So adversity is probably one of the bigger things, and then accountability. Accountability is a big one. Like that's like accountability is the one. Like that's a big deal. I think if you can really learn and apply that from football, you'll be quote unquote a step ahead of a lot of people in life, because that's something that's very difficult for people to deal with, accountability, and it's a hard thing. But football will teach you that, and I want to put these two together: teamwork and leadership. Those also kind of work together. Like in a team, sometimes it calls for you to be the leader. That may not be the entire season. That may not be every game, but at some point, sometimes it calls for you to be the leader and show leadership qualities for your team so you guys can accomplish something. Or, you know what I mean? And sometimes it requires you to understand that you are not the leader in this situation. Like, you step down. And you're showing leadership by stepping down and putting the team first in, whatever group you're in. So teamwork, leadership, accountability, and, adversity. Like, those are all things that, like, that stuff is, like, I think that makes you a better man. I think that's the love of the game. Like, that game takes, people assume it's from the violence, and that's what makes boys to men, but it ain't. It got less to do with that and more about accountability, teamwork, leadership, and that stuff. That's what makes you a man, and that's what makes football the best game in the world.
Okay, so we'll wrap things up with this question. When you look back at your journey up until now, which lessons do you think would be the most important to share with someone else on a similar path as you?
That's a good one. Man, confidence will be one, but I don't want that to be my answer. Because that's, I think, for me personally. Could you ask me a question one more time?
When you look back at your journey up until now, which lessons do you think would be the most important to share with someone else on a similar path as you?
Oh, man, I'm going to go with confidence. Confidence also includes, like you spoke about, chasing your own dreams. Put that in quotes because it ain't always about chasing your dream in the sense of what I mean, but it's more about just being selfish. Like, have the confidence to know that your life is about you. Like, that changes. You have kids, and sometimes that makes things different. But at the end of the day, you have to live with your life. So be confident about that and understand that, like, external matters so little. Like, I think as a young adult, we concern ourselves sometimes a lot with what other people think and how other people see your actions and et cetera, et cetera. And it means little to nothing. Like, and, you know, confirming this to me will be the advice I've gotten. And when I talk to older people, and they always say the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? They follow that and they say, like, man, you got to live your life. Like, nobody else can live it. You're the only one that has to be happy with it. So treat it like that. You know what I mean? Take full advantage, you know, because the situation would be different. You know what I mean? You can have kids. Like, I don't have kids, so I'm taking full advantage in, you know, until something like that, then I would have to take less out of it being my life, because now I'm sharing my life, and my life will be given to somebody else at some point. So while I can, you know what I mean? So just living your life, making the decisions for you, not worrying about nothing else, and chasing whatever it is you want to chase, whether it's a dream, something you want to do, anything you might like, just do that. Yeah, that's probably it.
Oh, cool. And we'll end it on that. I feel like that's great advice as far as, you know, passing it on to someone else in a similar position as you, or someone even thinking about playing at the next level, traveling, you know. Live your life, because at the end of the day, you have to live with your choices. You have to live with your decisions that you do make, and also decisions that you don't make. You'll be the one second-guessing yourself and what-ifing yourself for the rest of your life. So
yeah,
take that chance. It's okay to stick to the plan, too, but sometimes it's okay to take that chance, too.
Like you said, I think it's, you know, sometimes the ones you don't take, I don't think people put that into account all the time. Like, even the ones you don't take are going to be the ones you look like, damn, I wish I wouldn't have stuck to the plan right there. Wish I would have took the chance that time. You know what I mean? So the second one would be listening to. Listening is like, listening to people is a big deal. You'll learn a lot from listening.
Yeah.
You'll be able to live your life better by listening to what people tell you. People generally will offer you information. So,
yeah. All right, Justin. Well, thanks a lot for stopping by. Like I said, thanks for coming by and supporting what we're doing here, and, you know, sharing your story with us. So we really appreciate it.
Appreciate y'all having me. Hamburg United, man.
All right, cool, man. Thanks a lot.